This conference will now be recorded.
Welcome everyone to my presentation on STaRT, which stands for Start Today and Retire Tomorrow. My name is George Dillman and I'm the Consumer Outreach Specialist with the Pennsylvania Department of Banking and Securities. I like to say that the STaRT presentation isn't as much about isn't as much of a how to save and invest for retirement as it is a should do and why to. And if that doesn't make sense, it should make sense as we go along. Even though the how to part is important, in this day and age, with everything that we have at hand that can help us, modern technology, entities out there willing to help us, the hardest part of starting to save and invest. This is what we're talking about in the STaRT presentation. A large part of the hardest part about saving and investing for our retirement for a lot of people is just doing it. Statistics show that 45 to 50% of Americans retire with nothing to fall back on but a Social Security check. We don't want to be part of that half of the country. We want to be part of the other half that starts saving and investing, even if it's $20 or $30 a paycheck. And we'll talk about that as we go along. Even if it's $20 or $30 a paycheck, $20 to $30 a paycheck over 30, 40 years can really add up for something in addition to that Social Security check. A little bit about me before we get started. I'm not an expert on saving and investing for retirement. However, I'm a good example of that. If I can do it successfully, as the old saying goes, anybody can do it successfully. Again, with everything that we have at hand that can help us in this day and age, it's very easy, to be successful in saving and investing for our retirement goals. Also, I've been passionate about investing, saving and investing for my retirement ever since I was about the age of 13. When I was 13 years old, I went to a local amusement park with a group of friends. And while I was at that amusement park, I noticed a gentleman working in that park that just did not look happy being there. First of all, he was up in age, like 75 or 80 years of age. Not that that mattered, but the look on his face. First of all, struggling with the job. It was a dirty job. You could see the disgusted look in his face. And I looked at this gentleman and I thought, I don't think this gentleman's working this job because he wants to. I think he's working this job because he has to. And I thought right then and there, that's not going to be me. I'm not going to be 75 or 80 years of age working a job that I have to work because I need the money. Now, do I want to be 75 or 80 years of age working a job that I want to work because I want to continue working? They say there's some health benefits that come along with that, keeping the mind active, the body active. Absolutely. But big difference between doing it because you want to versus doing it because you have to. And again, that's what we're going to be talking about with this presentation. All right, a little bit about our agency. The Pennsylvania Department of Banking and Securities regulates financial services and works to ensure consumers and businesses are well informed about the marketplace. So, with that, let's start our presentation. And first of all, I need to apologize. This is the one presentation I do that is scripted, and I need to follow the script. As I mentioned to Nick before we started the recording, if I wouldn't follow the script, this presentation would probably last 4 hours rather than 40 to 45 minutes. So today we're going to talk about retirement planning. National statistics show that most of us are not saving enough for retirement. Many of us aren't saving anything at all. We have to remember for those late starters that it's never too late to start. And of course, it's never too early. In fact, the earlier the better. And we're going to be talking more about that as we go along. Let's take a look at the numbers. According to the National Institute on Retirement Security, 45% of Americans have nothing saved for retirement, and some statistics show 45 to 50% of Americans have nothing saved for retirement. Saved for retirement. No retirement account assets, nothing, nada, zilcho. The median retirement account for all working age households is only $2,500. and median savings for those nearing retirement is only $14,500. This is our goal for today with this presentation. First of all, if we don't have a plan in place, we don't have a retirement plan in place, we need to put a retirement plan in place. And part of that plan, I watch videos all the time, I read articles all the time, and every time they talk about saving and investing for retirement, they talk about a three-part thing, if you will. First of all, is paying down debt. Um, I'm going to talk about I have a quote from Albert Einstein later on that talks about compound interest and would we rather make compound interest or pay compound interest. Unfortunately, there's a lot of us out there paying compound interest. And if we're trying to save and invest for retirement, making 7 or 8% or even 9% a return on our investments, but what we're paying in compound interest is 2 or 3 times as much. You see where we're going with that. So we need to work on paying down, if not eliminating our debt. That's part of the plan. Also, we need to save a short-term / emergency fund to pay for those short-term needs and emergency needs that will come up. Mainly so we don't have to dip into our retirement accounts every time an emergency pops up, and they will pop up in order to pay for that. We need to have a good, healthy, short-term / emergency fund to dip into, usually covered in our savings accounts, savings, checking, money market accounts, things like that. Experts say that we should have at least 3 to 6 months worth of expenses in a short-term fund / emergency fund to pay for those short-term needs. And then finally, saving and investing for our retirement goals. So the first goal for those that don't have a plan in place is to get you to at least start thinking about that plan and getting the wheels rolling, getting that moving on creating that plan to pay down debt, build a nice healthy emergency short-term / emergency fund, and invest for our long-term retirement goals. The second goal for those that do have a plan in place is to get you to review that plan. Do I have debt paid down enough? Do I have a nice healthy emergency short-term / emergency fund? Am I saving enough? Am I investing enough? And am I investing the right way for my retirement goals? So for those that have a plan in place, the plan is to get you to review that to make sure that you're on track. Now, for those that have a plan in place, the third goal, for those that have a plan in place, um, and you're sure that it's a good plan. Hey, George, I've got my debt paid down. I've got a nice, healthy short-term / emergency fund. In fact, I have more than 3 to 6 months worth of expenses. I have almost 12 months, and I'm on track with how I'm investing for my retirement goals, how much I'm investing in, and I'm investing the right way. Then the goal today is to remind you why you're doing it, and to remind you to stay on course and don't get distracted. People that will try to dissuade you from your goals, like scammers looking to steal money from you, and we don't want to let that happen. Which brings us to the last one. The last goal is to protect that plan, because again, as we save and invest it, there are those out there looking to take it away from us. We don't want to let this, especially as we get closer to retirement and into retirement, and we don't want to let them do that. Right, so I have 2 videos with this presentation. What I'm going to be doing is skipping over those videos because we're combining 2 presentations into one presentation tonight. So what I'm going to do when I get to those videos is just refer you to them to view them and talk about the major points. The first one is called Investing in Your 30s. And you don't have to be in your 30s to take away the 3 main points that I'm going to be talking about tonight. First of all, you'd like to go to a site called wi65.org. wi65.org, a number of good videos on saving, investing, and protecting what you save and invest on that website. It was put together by PBS as well as a number of other entities such as our agency, and a lot of good videos on saving, investing, and protecting what you save and invest, and for different age groups, millennials, baby boomers, Gen Xers, so on and so forth. Again, this one is called investing in your 30s, but you don't need to be in your 30s to take away the three main points. The first point being is we don't need a lot to start saving and investing. You know, $20 a paycheck, $30 a paycheck, anything to get that ball, that compound interest snowball that we're going to be talking about shortly, rolling. And 20 to $30 a paycheck over a 30, 40 year period can really add up, especially when that compound interest starts kicking in. So we don't need a lot. And if we're working for a company that has a decent retirement plan, such as a 401k, hey, there's matching funds right there, and we can have that money automatically taken out of our check, and then we can look at how we're going to spend the rest of it. We've already allocated the funds for our long-term retirement goals. Second, it says we don't need to be experts on investing to invest successfully. Little bit of reading, a little bit of research. Again, in this day and age with modern technology and all the entities out there that are willing to help us to save and invest successfully, it may be the easiest part. The just doing it part may be the hardest part. And then finally, the sooner we start, the better. The sooner that compound interest snowball kicks in and starts to take off. And we're going to have a graph on that that we're going to take a look at shortly that explains that a little bit more. Okay, so the START program was developed to help us make wise decisions to reach our retirement goals. We're going to do this by looking at three career phases: early career, mid career, and late career. But first, how do you picture your retirement? We're going to take a look at some slides at how some people picture their retirement. Let's see if it kind of matches up with what you're looking for after you retire. How about a nice cold drink by the pool? Spending time with the grandkids, nice long walks in the country, little hunting, fishing, gardening, taking trips, puttering in our workshop. Few employers offer traditional pensions. Many, 51 to 52%, do not offer any retirement plan at all. We need a plan. Having a plan is crucial to meeting our retirement goals. It's important to know how much we need to retire the way we want to retire, not the way we have to retire. And remember, a dollar today won't be worth a dollar tomorrow, aka inflation. So we have to factor that in to our retirement goals. All right, so this is what retirement could look like for those that have a plan in place. Again, to pay down debt, build a nice, healthy short-term / emergency fund, and invest for our long-term goals. What could retirement look like for those people that don't have a plan? Let's take a look at those same slides with a little bit of a different angle to them. How about having to serve that guy by the pool his drink after drink after drink? Make sure you get that drink right. Or having to work in a daycare center after you retire. Or become a professional dog walker. How about having to hunt and fish for your own food or grow your own food in the garden because we can't afford to go to the grocery store all the time? Or become a golf caddy working for tips? Or driving loud, angry tourists on coach trips, bus trips? Or become a deckhand working on a boat? How about having to look at pictures of Paris, Rome, and London because we can't afford to go to these places? And finally, how about having to work in some modern day workshop, probably for some supervisor half your age, barking orders at you, you're not working hard enough, you're not working fast enough. Same slides, two different scenarios. Those with a plan, those without a plan. And by the way, at I'm not poking fun at anybody who, at any one of those professions that I just talked about. And here's the example that I use. Working in the daycare center. I knew a couple people that retired and went to work in daycare centers and loved it. Loved being with the kids, and it was almost like having a bunch of grandkids to be with during the day. And in some respects, it was still a job. What was the difference though? They were doing it because they wanted to, not because they had to. Again, big difference. And we'll talk more about that as we go along. Okay, so we're talking about these points because, again, look at the statistics. As a whole, we're not saving enough. Many of us aren't saving anything at all. Gen Xers are falling short. We need to start saving, and the earlier the better. Let's talk about compound interest. And this is that quote that I mentioned earlier from Albert Einstein. Compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it. He who doesn't pays it. And I think we know what he means by that. Would we rather earn compound interest or pay compound interest? Unfortunately, whether it's us or people that we know, there's a lot of people out there paying compound interest. Those plastic cards that get a lot of us into trouble with those interest rates of 15%, 20%, 25% interest. We need to turn that around, pay down and eliminate debt if we can, if as we can, build a nice healthy short-term fund, and invest for our retirement and earn compound interest rather than pay it. This is a slide on the power of compound interest. In the first scenario, I'm going to save $84 a month over the next 40 years, but I'm not going to put it anywhere where it's going to earn me compound interest. I'm going to put it underneath my mattress or bury it in jars out in my backyard. After 40 years, I'm going to have a little over $40,000. Not too bad. Not too bad. Different scenario. I decide I'm going to take that $84 a month and I'm going to put it someplace where it's going to earn me a nice, healthy compound interest. Maybe invest it in the stock market and get about a 10% return on my investment. After 40 years, I'm going to have close to $500,000. Little bit of a difference. Little bit of a difference on that with that. All right, this is a slide on the power of compound interest. In the first example, we have Susan. Susan invests. Susan, starting at the age of 25, Susan decides to invest $5,000 a year for 10 years for a total of $50,000. At the age of 35, at the age of 35, she stops investing. She doesn't take any of it out. She just lets compound interest kick in. And Susan's going to be the middle dotted line on the graph here. Bill waits 10 years. He waits until he's 35. At the age of 35, Bill starts investing $5,000 a year for 30 years for a total of $150,000, three times as much as Susan over that 30-year period. But at the end of that period, and Bill's going to be the bottom line here on the graph. But at the end of that period, who has more money? Susan has him beat out by about $60,000. Obviously not because she invested more, but because she started earlier and compound interest kicked in earlier and took off earlier. She kept pace, she kept ahead of Bill over that 30-year period, 40 years total. Now you see in all three examples, by the way, how after the first 10 or 15 years you might not see as much, but after the first 10 or 15 years, it really starts to take off. Really starts to take off. Also, I'm not painting doom and gloom for anybody who didn't start investing when they were 25 years of age. The whole point of this is the earlier we start, the better it is, and the sooner that compound interest really starts to kick in and take off. Because, Bill's not going to make out as well as Susan, even though he waited, but Bill's certainly going to make out better than somebody who waited until they were 40 or 45. And that person's certainly going to make out better than somebody who waited until they were 45 or 50, and so on and so forth. All right, so how much do I need to retire? Retirement statistics are not good. Again, as a whole, we're not saving enough. But cutting costs and saving isn't rocket science. And we're talking about cutting down. Are there things that we can cut back on to free up, to give us those additional funds that we could set aside to pay down our debt, to build a nice, healthy short-term fund, and to invest for our retirement? We're going to be talking more about this in the next presentation on spending plans, creating a spending plan where we create those additional funds by cutting back. I prefer talking about swapping out, where you're getting the same bang for less buck. We're going to talk more about that in that video. So the whole idea here is we don't want to cut out. We don't want to deprive ourselves, but things that we can cut down on to free up those additional funds. And here's a quote from Warren Buffett. The Oracle of Omaha, the gentleman who only has about 100 to 150 billion dollars in his bank account, he says if you buy things you do not need, soon you will have to sell things you need. And it makes sense when you think about it, right? People they have to have this, they have to have that, and they continue to go deeper and deeper and deeper into debt till at some point that house of cards falls apart. I also, if this with this slide, I like to talk about the keeping up with the Joneses. I think a lot of us are still familiar with that. We see people around us, going out and buying, the couple that go out and buy the brand new top of the line, all the bells and whistles, matching SUVs, and they have them parked in their driveway. We feel we have to do the same thing. They go out and buy a bigger and grander house. We feel we have to follow suit. For all we know, the Joneses may be one paycheck away from total financial ruin. And if we're following suit, we're going down the same path. People that we should emulate, that we should look up to and follow, are people like Warren Buffett, those people that have real money in their bank accounts and don't live lavish lifestyles. Warren Buffett still lives in the same house that he bought back in the 1950s, long before he had 100 to 150 billion dollars in his bank account. Now, bigger than any house I'm ever going to live in. But for somebody who has that much money, he could certainly live in something much bigger, much grander. But he says, why do I need it? I'm happy with the house that I have. Who do I need to impress? This is a gentleman that famously goes out. I just found this out about a year ago. He never buys a new car. He always buys a used car that's a couple years old. He realizes that the value that a car loses in its first couple years. And I think we've all heard this story where the minute you drive a brand new car off the showroom lot, it loses a couple $1,000s in value. Why? Because it's now classified as a used car. He realizes this. He realized the money that can be saved by buying something that's already a couple years old. Guy who loves to go, one of his favorite restaurants he loves to go out to is McDonald's. What does he use when he goes out there? Just like a lot of other people, he uses coupons. He gets them in the mail like anyone else. Why not use them? So these are the people we should look up to. People like Warren Buffett, or and millionaires out there you wouldn't even know are millionaires because they don't live that millionaire lifestyle. They live in a normal house, drive a normal car, wear normal clothes. They're not out purchasing this, that, and the other thing. And again, as the old saying goes, how do you think they got so many millions? So this is what we're looking at doing. We're looking at cutting costs, paying down or eliminating debt, and then saving and investing. We're looking at making money work for us, not against us. Remember that Albert Einstein quote. All right, so now let's start our phases. Some of you are in the early phase, some are in mid, and some are in the late phase. The first phase in planning for retirement should start the moment you enter the workforce on a permanent or full-time basis. While retirement might not be your primary concern today, it should be a consideration. Financial decisions made today will have a major impact in later stages of retirement planning and how you live in retirement. Time is on your side, but do not wait too long to start. Start today because tomorrow may never come. So, where do you want to be when you retire? How you live, save, and invest today should be in line with how you want to retire. Decide how you want to retire and plan accordingly. We're not all going to need, the same things when we retire. And here's the example I use. You have one couple who live in a nice little cottage, 2 3 bedroom cottage. They have it paid off. They love spending time at home, puttering in the garden, working in the workshop, making meals at home, throwing a movie on one of the movie channels, making their own homemade popcorn, and watching a movie, getting the same car serviced year in and year out. They're not going to have the same needs in retirement as the couple that wants to keep going on nice vacations, continue to go out to nice restaurants, maybe live in a bigger and better house when they retire, have a brand new car every year or every other year. Um, two different couples, two different scenarios, two different needs with so we decide how we want to live in retirement and plan accordingly to make sure we have the finances to do that. We start by asking ourselves these questions. Where do I want to be financially? Does the job I have provide enough income? Do I know what I'm doing? Do I understand basic investment principles? Do I know where to find a licensed financial professional? Am I taking full advantage of my retirement options? Are my current habits getting me to my goal? A to-do list can be helpful. And I have these to-do lists I will send out to Nick to make available to everybody. These are the first couple pages of these to-do lists are checkoff sheets for every phase of your career: early career, mid career, late career. Checkoff things for everything you need to check off to make sure that you're on track. The last couple pages of this to-do list are videos that you can watch, websites that you can go to on saving, investing, and protecting what you save and invest to retirement. Something else that we can do is create a SMART plan. What is a SMART plan? That's a plan that is specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and has a time component to it. And doesn't have to be anything long and drawn out. It doesn't have to be the next Gettysburg Address. Something as simple as I will save $500,000 in my retirement account in 40 years. Now, let's make sure that it is a SMART plan. First of all, specific. I would say $500,000 is specific. By the way, experts say that if we set specific goals as opposed to non-specific goals, right, much more achievable. Rather than saying I want to save a lot of money for my retirement. Well, what's a lot of money? We just talked about, two couples where a lot of money to one couple is different to the other. But if you set a specific number, a specific goal, what they consider specific and exciting goal, like $500,000, much more achievable. So specific, measurable, we can certainly measure that. Attainable and realistic, let's shelve that for now. We'll come back to that. Time component, 40 years, right? I would say. Oh, and there is the so according to the compound interest calculator at investor.gov, it is attainable and realistic. I plugged very easy to find, by the way, investor.gov, very easy to use. There are others out there. Social Security has one. Um, but I plugged in the numbers for Ned, and I came up with a little over $500,000 in Ned's retirement account after 40 years. Now, did I manipulate these numbers to get the answer, to get the number that I wanted? Yes, I did. But think about it. This is what you would be doing as you're going along, using this calculator, making sure that you're staying on track. You set that goal and you plug in those numbers, and as you need to, you change those numbers to make sure that you're staying on mark for your goal. Here's the example that I use. Um, Say I have 10% that he's getting a 10% return. Maybe Ned finds out, realizes he's only getting, say 7 to 8%, maybe, or 8 to 9%. He's not going to reach his goal. Gee, what can I do? Well, I'm putting in $86 a month. I just got that raise, and if I up that to this amount, according to these new figures, I'll now hit my mark. So this is what we're doing as we're going along, changing those numbers. This is why we use these calculators, to make sure that we set a goal and to make sure that we can stick to it and achieve those goals. Make saving and investing a habit. Start small if you have to, but start. Estimate what you will need in retirement. Ask for help if you need it. It's good to have professional help. Just make sure that financial professional, and this is what we're talking about here, is licensed and legit. Everyone, no matter what your income level, can save and invest money. You just have to get the right information, have a plan, and put that plan into action. And with that, we have our second and final video. And again, as with the first one, I'm going to kind of assign this as a homework assignment for people. If you go to YouTube and search Mr. Earl Super Saver, you'll find this video on Mr. Earl. Mr. Earl Super Saver. Mr. Earl never made more than $12 an hour in his career. At the time of the video, Him and his wife had raised 3 children who all attended private school. Now, what he did, or what they did, so they didn't have to dip into their retirement account to pay for private school, they went out and got part-time jobs to pay for private school. Contingency plans. We have plans in place to make sure that we're sticking to our retirement goals. So at the time of the video, raised 3 children who all attended private school. At the time of the video, they had their mortgage paid off. And at the time of the video, they had over $500,000 in their investment portfolio. The reason for viewing this is just to show that we can do this. No matter what we're making, we can do this. And again, we're going to, in the second part to this presentation, we're going to be talking about spending plans and where we can create, where we can cut back and create those additional funds to pay down debt, build up a nice, healthy short-term fund, and build up a nice, healthy retirement fund as well. Okay, do your homework before investing. Make sure you're getting non-product promotional information, such as what we offer through our website at dobbs.pa.gov. Our agency regulates Pennsylvania Department of Banking and Securities. We regulate those industries in the Commonwealth. Anything dealing with banking, finances, investments, if anyone ever has a question, a problem, an issue, they can reach out to us by calling our toll-free number at 800 PA Banks or reaching us through our website at dobbs.pa.gov. Also, we have a number of handouts for consumers on our website related to saving, investing, and protecting what you save and invest under our consumers tab. And this is just a sample of the handouts that we have available. Okay, moving on. We're now ending phase one, and we're ending phase one with this checklist. Ask if your employer offers a retirement plan. If they do, and make sure it's a decent one. Some retirement plans, some companies have them just to say they have them. So make sure it's a good one, such as one with a company match to it. And if it does, it might be a good idea to get into that. If they don't, or if it doesn't look like a good retirement plan, research and choose your own retirement account. And or the right investment advisor to work with. Consider traditional and Roth IRAs as a way of putting money away for your retirement. Switching up a little bit, consider how other life decisions like having children or owning a home may impact your retirement resources. And make sure you're following money-wise practices. Keep your debt paid down. Keep a nice, healthy short-term / emergency fund and maximize your retirement funds. All right, phase two. We're now in phase two of planning our retirement. Am I on track? Those in phase two or mid-career should have a plan in place. If not, they need to start. Early in our careers and younger, we can take more risks with our investments. We have more time to recoup losses and make our money work for us. Further on, however, we want to make sure we're closely aligned with our goals and plans. We want to make sure we are taking fewer risks to ensure we achieve our retirement goals. And with that, we have a snapshot of the stock market from its inception to about where it's at today. The slide is a little old, but still gets the point across. They equate the stock market to a roller coaster. The stock market goes up and down, up and down. But look at where it goes over the long term. Over the long term, where does it go? As we can see, it goes up. I think we're all familiar with the term investing for the long term. When we're younger, we can afford to ride out those ups and downs. We can afford to go riskier with our investments, investing in more stocks as opposed to going in being more conservative, such as with bonds and money market funds, because we can ride out those ups and downs of the stock market. In the long term, we should get a greater return. Since 1926, this is where I get this 10% from that I use, by the way. Since 1926, large companies in this country have paid on average about a 10% return to their investors. So this is, again, if we're looking to to make out in the long term. We have time on our side. We can ride out those ups and downs. Now, as we get closer to where we're getting ready to retire, 5 to 10 years away from retirement, we want to start pulling back from those riskier investments, for the short term volatility, and go more conservative with our investments. And that brings us to asset allocation, right? When we're younger, and you see how they divided it up here with the age. But when we're younger, we can afford to go riskier with our investments because we can ride those ups and downs. As we get closer, we're looking to retire. We want to start pulling back from that and going more conservative with bonds, money market funds, cash, if you will. Because what we don't want to do is we're ready to retire. We're going to start pulling money out of our retirement, and we hit a downturn in the market. If we have, everything invested in stocks, especially riskier stocks, now we're either pulling that money out at a loss, or we're waiting until the market bounces back before we start taking it out. But if we start going more conservative with our investments, that money should be there for us to start pulling from when we're ready to retire. So asset allocation should factor in, depending on where we're at in our careers. Regularly review your retirement plan. Make sure you are on track with your goals. Remember to account for inflation. Again, a dollar today won't be worth a dollar tomorrow. And meet with your investment advisor regularly if you choose to have one. And the more and more I hear, that it's good to work with some type of a financial professional. Just make sure that person is licensed and legit. Stay in tune with what your retirement savings and investments are doing. Keep debt under control and emergency savings healthy. However, even well thought out plans can be derailed. Have contingency plans in place. For example, a part time job for those uncertain economic conditions, such as a wage freeze. Use additional income from raises or elimination of debt to add to your retirement savings. For example, say paying off the mortgage. You have a couple that pay their mortgage off. Maybe they pay it off early. They're used to sending X number of dollars into the mortgage company. And rather than just spending that money now that they've paid the mortgage off, they decide to start sending that check into their retirement account and building up that retirement account even more. Switching up a little bit, one way to prepare for retirement is life planning. Make sure your life and end of life plans are in order and carried out as you wish. Also, we do not want to factor family history into our retirement plans. If I come from a family where male members tend to die of heart attacks in their 40s and 50s, doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to. So I shouldn't plan accordingly. Plus, in this day and age, with the way they're making leaps and bounds with modern medicine, a lot of us can expect to live into our 90s, maybe to 100. What we don't want to do is be 100 years old and broke. So again, plan accordingly. All right, final phase 3. Are we there yet? This is our last phase, or phase 3. If you're within 10 years of retirement, you're in the final stretch. You should be in your peak earning years. You want to be hyper vigilant and making sure that you're making sound financial decisions. Beware of those get rich quick schemes. This is where people can get into trouble. Oh, gee, I'm not sure if I have enough invested in my retirement account for my retirement. And somebody comes along with this great investment opportunity. They're going to guarantee me a 15% rate of return at little to no risk, and a quick turnover period in that investment. Do you know who offered all that? A gentleman by the name of Bernie Madoff, and we know what happened there. A lot of people lost a lot of money. Some people lost their entire life savings, thinking this is what was going to get them, that fine. So we want to stick to what we've been doing. Stick to that plan, so to speak. We don't want to get derailed. This is where we start to get hit. This phase in our career with fraudsters and scammers looking to separate us from those funds. We want to be aware that retirees have a huge red target on them when it comes to scammers. Learn how to identify the signs of fraud to avoid it, and what to do if you are a victim. With less than 10 years until retirement, you want to assess your savings and investments to date. Make sure you are prepared for the retirement that you want, not the retirement that you have to take. Situations could arise that could leave you with insufficient retirement funds, such as medical expenses. Investing additional funds could help these situations. The curveballs life throws at us later in our lives, like forced early retirement, tend to have harsher impacts. Make sure you plan ahead on how to meet those challenges if they should arise. Now, if money was not an issue, consider working in retirement to make your nest egg go even further. This is an opportunity to pad that retirement nest egg and do something you've always wanted to do. This is an opportunity to work a job you want to work, not one that you have to work. I mentioned that guy working at the amusement park and how he did not look happy being there. He was working that job because he had to. We're looking at being in a situation where we're looking to work a job in retirement because we want to. We want to keep busy, we stay healthy, keep the mind active, the body active, make a few extra dollars to pad that retirement account, and maybe do something you always wanted to do your whole life, but maybe you weren't going to make the money that you were making by doing it. And the whole idea here is to make sure you're prepared to jump into that new career once you retire. Here's the example I'm going to use. Say I want to teach. I want to teach part-time. I always wanted to teach, but I knew it wasn't going to make me the money that I wanted to make. So I'm going to teach part-time in retirement. I need to go back and take a few extra courses in order to do that. While I'm working my full-time job, I take those extra courses so I'm prepared. So when I retire, I can jump into that new part-time job, that job that I always wanted to do. Anticipate inflation and tax implications. What you don't want to do is outlive your retirement money. As I said earlier, we all want to live to be 100. We don't want to be 100 years old and broke. So we need to plan accordingly and make sure that that money is going to last. Learn the warning signs and how to protect yourself from fraud, identity theft, etc. Now more than ever, you need to make sure your investment is safe and sound. So, in conclusion, start today and retire tomorrow. Don't put off until tomorrow because tomorrow may never come. If you've already started, review it, add to it, make changes to it if needed. If you've started and review it and it looks good, stay the course and continue to review it anyway, just to make sure that you're staying on course. And finally, protect it. Because again, there are those out there who are going to look to take that away from us, take those funds away from us that we've saved. We don't want to let them do that. We want to stick to our course and not get dissuaded anyhow. Because again, what we don't want is we don't want to be 75 or 80 years of age, like that gentleman at the amusement park, broke, working a job that we have to work because we need the money. What we want to be is 75 or 80 years of age, working a job because we want to work a job, because we want to continue working, living life, living retirement on our terms. And with that, we will conclude the first presentation on START today and retire tomorrow. If anyone has any questions or would like to reach out to us, again, you have any questions as it relates to banking, investing, finances, certainly reach out to us at 1-800-PA-BANKS or 800-722-2657 or dobbs.pa.gov. Now, Nick, I'm not sure if we want to stop and then restart, or if you just want me to keep going, I could just pull up the second presentation.
You can just keep going.
Okay. And you can see my second presentation.
Yep.
Fantastic. Let me take a swig of coffee. I hope nobody minds. All right, welcome to the second part of tonight's presentation on spending plans, a road to financial success. Again, my name is George Dillman, and I'm the Consumer Outreach Specialist with the Pennsylvania Department of Banking and securities. So according to Investopedia, a personal spending plan for us older folk, budgeting. Personal spending plan helps you determine your cash flow. It can help you understand how you earn and spend your money. When paired with a financial goals worksheet, the personal spending plan can be used to create a roadmap for monitoring your spending and helping you achieve your financial goals. Bottom line, what we're looking at doing is we're monitoring what's coming in versus what's going out. And the whole idea is to make sure we have more money coming in than what's going out. And if we don't, we need to change that around. Here's another way of looking at it. Living below our means. And I don't want to make a negative thing about this. I talked a little bit about this in the previous presentation on start today and retire tomorrow. A number of people out there, millionaires out there, who you wouldn't even know are millionaires because they don't live that millionaire lifestyle, whatever that is. They live in normal homes, they drive normal cars, wear normal clothes. You wouldn't even know they were millionaires because they don't live that millionaire lifestyle. And as I said in the previous presentation, as the old saying goes, how do you think they got so many millions? People that live below their means and have the money to show for it in case it's needed. They have their debt paid down. They have a nice, healthy short-term / emergency fund and a nice, healthy retirement fund to fall back on. So we're looking at living below our means. A lot of us out there, I think many of us out there, live basically paycheck to paycheck. Every dollar that's coming in, there's a dollar going out. Some people, I have family members like this. They have $1 to their name and it's burning a hole in their pocket until they get that $1 spent. They're living paycheck to paycheck again, and whether we're making $12.50 an hour or 2,500 an hour. People that are living paycheck to paycheck. I read an article on a wife and her husband. The wife wrote into one of these financial gurus, and she didn't know what she was going to do. She said her and her husband are living paycheck to paycheck, and she needs to turn this around. She was making $350,000 a year. But it doesn't matter. Whether we're making $30,000 a year or $350,000 a year, people out there living paycheck to paycheck and probably want to do something to create where they have more coming in than what's going out. Um, and of course there are people out there that and we again, whether it's us or people that we know, probably people that we know that are living above their means, right? Maybe for every dollar that's coming in, there's $1.25 or $1.50 going out. They have to have this, they have to have that, they need this, they need that, and they continue to go further and further and further into debt. And those people really need to turn themselves around, or we know what the end result is there. So the whole idea is to live below our means. We want to make sure that we have more money coming in to the coffers than what's going out, with enough in between, enough additional funds in between to fund those financial goals that we're going to be talking about shortly. This is what we're going to be talking about. This is going to be covering goal setting, cash flow and tracking your expenses, creating the plan, and monitoring and adjusting that plan for new goals. But we're looking at setting SMART goals. What is a SMART goal? That's a goal that is specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and has a time component to it. We talked about this in the last presentation. And again, as I said in the last presentation, doesn't have to be anything complicated. Something as simple as I will save $300 in 6 months for a new smartphone. I'm looking to put those funds. Where am I going to get the $300 over the next 6 months to put aside to pay for that new smartphone? So I'm not throwing something else on that plastic credit card and taking how many months to pay off with those high interest rates. I want to have those funds. I don't want to be able to set them aside. So where am I going to come up with those additional funds? And this is what we're looking at. And maybe in this case, I'm going to come up over the next 6 months, I'm going to come up with $50 a month, an extra $50 a month to set aside. So at the end of 6 months, I have the $300, maybe not for a new smartphone in this scenario, a newer smartphone, Maybe I exchange my phone every 3 to 5 years. This is the year that I'm doing it, and I'm just upgrading to a newer phone. So, what are your goals? And this is, we're talking about goal setting. We're talking about basically three types of goals: short-term goals, mid-range goals, and long-term goals. Short-term goals might be that new smartphone this coming year. Maybe that vacation that the wife and I like to take with the kids every year down at the shore. We like to go down to the shore. We don't go too extravagant. We spend about $1,000, $1,200 a year on that nice 1 week vacation down at the shore. We know it's coming up. Rather than throwing something else on the credit card and taking how many months to pay that off, can we come up with those funds over the course of the next year, that we have at least most of those funds to pay for that trip outright, as opposed to going into debt again for a year, and then paying it off over the course of the next year. So where can we come up with those additional funds for that? Those end of year holiday funds or I should say expenses that we have. Again, a lot of us, when I talk about end of year holidays, I'm talking about Thanksgiving, New Year's, and whatever holiday we celebrate in between: Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, whatever it is. People that rack up $1,000, $1,200, $1,300 with those end of year holiday expenses. Where can I come up with the additional funds over the course of the next year? Can I open up a holiday fund at my local bank and put X number of dollars, maybe $100 a month? And where do I come up? And this is what we're looking at doing. Mid range goals. Maybe that new car every 3 to 5 years. Uh, the wife and I get that newer car, and we're going to set funds aside over the course of the next 3 to 5 years to purchase that car outright. Maybe we're looking at buying our first home, and we're looking at the down payment, 20-25%. We have a price range that we're looking at. Where do we come up with that 20 to 25% down payment over the course of the next 3 to 5 years to put down on that first home? Long range goals, education might be one. I like to key in on retirement, though. As I mentioned in the previous video, 45 to 50% of Americans retire with nothing else to fall back on but a Social Security check. We don't want to be that half of the country that does that. We want to be part of the other half that has something invested for our long-term retirement goals. And I'm not just talking the average or the median, which is $14,000, $15,000. We're looking at something significantly more, if I can say the word. um, eh, you know, Over a period of time, 30, 40 years, setting that money aside to get me to that goal. So these are the types of goals we're looking at. So we're not going into debt. We're finding those funds as we go along to pay for them. So in order to meet our goals, we must understand our financial situation, our cash flow, what's coming in versus what's going out. Cash flow coming in, anything that's coming into the coffers, the pay from a job, husband and wife both working, there's two paychecks coming in. Maybe one or both of them are already retired and collecting Social Security and still have a job. So the paychecks, the Social Security checks, am I collecting from anything total coming into the household? Cash flow coming in versus cash flow going out in the form of expenses. And when we're looking at expenses, we're looking at basically two types of expenses: fixed expenses and flexible expenses. Fixed expenses might be the mortgage, the rent, car payment, car insurance. Flexible expenses might be utilities, groceries, entertainment. Those expenses that can, or variable expenses, another way I like to call it, expenses that can vary, whether we make them vary or they vary naturally. Here's the example I use. Husband and wife, they have an unseasonably warm winter like we're kind of having this year. They're not paying as much in heat. So the utility bill, that's a natural variation because we're not using as much heat because of because of what's going on outside. Or they make it vary. Um, I'm going to say my house is all on electric, and you have a couple that everything runs on electric: the heat, the air, the lights, and everything. One spouse goes to the other, "Hey, honey, I did some figuring, and I figured that if we lowered our thermostat 5 degrees in the winter time and we raised it 5 degrees in the summertime, I think we would save probably about $50 to $60 a month by doing on our total utility bill by doing that. So we're making it vary. Cutting back on something to make it vary to free up some additional funds. So variable expenses, flexible or variable expenses versus fixed expenses. Expenses we can't really do anything about. Or can we? Here's a thought. Can fixed expenses also be variable or flexible? Here's the example I use. If I rent, could I shop around and maybe find a better deal? Maybe I find a comparable unit, same size, same number of rooms, same type of location, but at a better rate. I save myself $200 or $300 a month. I've just and this is where I like talking about swapping out, because we talk about people like to talk about cutting back in this, cutting back. I like talking more about swapping out. And here's a good example of that, where I move into another apartment in another complex, and I save myself $300 a month by doing that. I'm getting the same bang for less bucks. I now have an extra. I can now look at it as an extra $300 coming in. What can I do with that extra $300? Could 50 of that be put towards that new smartphone I'm putting money aside for? Could $100 of that be put towards that family vacation? Another 100 be put towards those end of year holiday expenses? So that insurance is another thing. I shop around for car insurance every 3 to 5 years, because if you notice, car insurance normally creeps up every year. Every 3 to 5 years, I shop around for new and car insurance. Last time I did it, I got a comparable policy, saved myself over $400 a year. So my whole point here is, when it comes to fixed expenses could also be variable as well. And we certainly don't want to discount them. Maybe look at them as a way of freeing up those additional funds, cutting back or swapping out. All right, so what we want to do is we want to track our spending. We're going to write down everything that we spend money on over at least the next 30 days. Some experts, and I fall into this category, well, not that I'm an expert, but some experts say that we should do it for at least 60 or 90 days. And I feel the same way. Doing it for at least 60 to 90 days gives you a good average. If you have an unusual month where you have a lot going out the door, it's not going to give you a good average. But if you do it over 60 or 90 days, it gives you a good average of what on average is going out the door, what you're spending money on. So we're going to write down everything we spend money on, no matter what it is. Even if I give, I have two kids, and even if I give them both some spending, a couple dollars here, a couple dollars there, spending money, I want to write all this down. I go out and buy a pack of gum. I'm on the road, and I stop and I buy a pack of gum here, a pack of gum there, whatever the cost. I write everything down, and we're going to assign a budgeting category, and we're going to see where all this goes. And here's the two reasons we do this. We track our spending. First of all, I think a lot of us think that we do have more coming in than what's going out. And I think a lot of us would be surprised. I think a lot of people would find that every dollar that's coming in, there's a dollar going out, and there are no additional funds. In some cases, people are going to find out that they have more going out the door than what's coming in. And even if it's a small amount, maybe I track my expenses over 60 or 90 days, and say I have only $30 to $50 a month more going out than what's coming in. Well, if I have $30 to $50 on average, $30 to $50 going out, more going out every month than what's coming in, even though it's a slow process, where I'm headed with that. So, but I think some people would be surprised that they actually have more going out than what's coming in. And again, those people really need to turn things around. So that I think one reason is to see if we do have more coming in than what's going out. And again, I think a lot of us will be surprised and find out that we don't have more coming in than what's going out. And that's one of the reasons for doing this. The other thing is to see what we're spending money on and how much we're spending on that, because again, I think we would surprise ourselves. um, I use the example of giving the kids some, spending money here, spending. Maybe I'm, giving them $5 each here, $5 each there. And if I add it up over the course of a month, oh my God, hey honey, guess what? We're giving the kids on average $60 each, or $120 a month in spending money. I think we'd surprise ourselves as to how much we're spending. Or that chewing gum that I get out. Maybe I'm with my job, I'm on the road a lot, and I'm always chewing gum. Maybe I'm a gumaholic, and I'm stopping in this convenience store, that convenience store, buying a pack here, buying a pack there, and I add that up over the course of a month, and I'm spending $60 a month on chewing gum. Oh my God! Look, I didn't realize, I was so I think we'd be surprised at what we're spending money on and how much. And it already starts getting those wheels turning as to where we could either cut back or swap out to free up additional funds. Those coffees that a lot of us like to have out. Even today, the fancy coffee shop down the road from where I live. Just about every time I go past that fancy coffee shop, there's a line of it's a standalone, and they have the drive-through window, and that line wraps around the building. Long line of cars waiting to get their coffee and maybe even their donut. If I spend $4 a day on going to that coffee shop and getting my fancy coffee or latte or cappuccino, $4 a day, that adds up to 30 days, that adds up to $120 a month. So we're tracking all this. Also, spending leaks. What can be just as important, those spending leaks, things that we're spending money on, if we were to eliminate it, we wouldn't even miss it. And here's the example that I use. The first of all, and my own personal examples, by the way. I took stock of magazine subscriptions I had. I had subscriptions to 5, 6, 7 magazines, and each subscription was like somewhere between $50 and $60 a month. I realized, and I started tracking my spending, and a subscription would come up here, subscription would come up there, and I realized, God, I'm not even reading these magazines anymore. Thanks to these things, these smartphones where you can look up everything, look up articles and things like that. Not only was I not reading the magazines anymore, I wasn't even taking them out of the plastic sleeve. I'd set them aside someplace. Oh, I'll get to that later, and I never get to it. And I realized I'm spending this money every year on something that I wouldn't even miss if I eliminated. So I eliminated those magazine subscriptions. Something else that I did was take stock of those channels that I don't watch, cable channels and those internet channels, and I eliminated either duplicates or ones that I wasn't watching, and saved myself 30, 40, $50 a month by doing that. So those spending leaks, things that, and that's could be just as important with tracking. Things that if we were to eliminate, we wouldn't even miss, and that's a way of freeing up, again, additional funds that we could use to set aside for those SMART goals. So we do this, and now we know where we're at and where we need to get to. We're going to record all income, and we're going to assign spending allotments. And there's different ways that we can do this. I talked about a financial goals worksheet in the beginning of the presentation. We just talked about a tracking our spending using a spending tracker, and now we're going to get into the spending plan itself, or the budgeting worksheet. I have 3 examples of those worksheets that I'm going to forward to Nick. He'll make those available to anybody who wants the samples that I have. So you can use the handouts that I'm forwarding to him. You can go on the internet and find your own. I went on the internet and found these, and there's a whole bunch of them out there that you can look and use. Maybe you find something that would suit you better for using. Software that you could use, or you could create your own online spreadsheets and track it that way. Um, I'm a I'm a simple person. I live by myself. I don't have a lot coming and going. Easy for me to track my spending and to do my budgeting worksheets. I do that with a pad and pen. I just do a pad and pen, and I write everything down that way. So no matter how you do it, as the old Nike ad says, just do it. And we start and we either create our own or use one to track our spending and to create, and we're going to be creating that plan now. And again, by doing this, we now know where we're at and where we're looking to go to. All right, so we're creating the plan. We're going to list all monthly expenses. We're going to use the information from the spending tracker to do that. And now we're going to plan on paper where all this money is going to go. and we're going to decide how much is going to be spent on each one of those in those in that expense category. In that expense category. Now, it's recommended, don't have to, but some experts recommend using a plan or creating a plan that has a budgeted column and an actual column. And in the budgeted column, we put down what we're going to spend on each one of those expenses over the course of the month. The husband and wife decide maybe their electric bill is normally $200 a month, but they figure they're going to save themselves $50 a month by lowering the thermostat 5 degrees in the winter, raising it 5 degrees in the summer, averaged over 12 months, they're going to save themselves. So they're going to budget $150 a month. They just freed up $50. They decide they're going to cut back on what they're going to monitor what they give as far as that extra spending money to their kids, and they're not going to cut that out, but they're going to cut that down. Maybe they decide to cut that down to $80 a month, and they monitor it. So each one of the kids is going to get roughly $40 a month spending. Maybe they get assigned chores, and they work for the spending money, and it's all set up. They're getting $40 a month. They've just now so they budget $80 a month for that. They've just eliminated $40. They just freed up another $40. And we're doing this with, we're trying to do this with everything, or in some cases swapping out. Like I said, husband and wife, they both love getting that coffee every day down at the fancy coffee shop, whether it's together or it's on their, on the way to their job or on their way home from their job. And they're both spending roughly $4 a day. Oh my God, honey, we're spending $240 a month just on those coffees. Is there something we could do about that? Maybe. And by the way, here's something that people with money will do to save money. They'll actually spend money to save money. And again, I'm going to use that coffee example. I'm a coffee drinker myself. I'll take a swig here as I'm chatting. But using that coffee example, somebody with money might go out and spend $300-400 on a really nice, maybe commercial grade coffee, combination coffee machine, cappuccino, latte, espresso maker, and maybe and they start making more of their own coffees at home and taking them on the road with them rather than stopping in at the fancy coffee shop. Well, if I'm spending $120 a month, even if I were to cut that in half and I start making more of my own coffees at home, maybe the total cost cuts that down to $60. I've just freed up $60 a month. And if I take that, over the course of the next 6 months, I've just saved, paid off that coffee machine, that I spent the money on, and then everything after that is basically gravy, so to speak. So, can they do that? Maybe they don't go out and get the fancy coffee machine, but maybe they already have a nice coffee maker at home, and they decide, hey, honey, how about if we just go, we cut this expense in half. Maybe we go out every other day. And we make more of our own coffee at home, take it to work with us, and I figured we could cut our that bill down from $240 a month to $120. We've just freed up another $120 a month, and we see how we can do this with other. Can we swap out? Do we? Groceries. Can we start eating more chicken and fish? And healthier veggies, and maybe even save money that way. And we're going down, how can we cut down on the grocery bill, entertainment, that type of thing. And we're planning on all this in paper. At the end of the month, if we use a budgeted column and an actual column, at the end of the month we could write down how we actually did. Did we go over budget? Did we go under budget? If we went under budget, could we do that on a regular basis, and should we re-budget? Using the coffee is an example. Husband and wife do that, and they find out they're not even spending $120 a month anymore. Maybe they're only spending $70 a month with the whole total. Maybe they decide to re-budget from 120 to 80. They pad it a little bit in case they want that extra coffee here or there, and now they just freed up another $40. If we went over budget, is there something that we can do to ring that in and bring it back so that we're in budget, so we have those additional funds to use towards those financial goals? All right, sometimes income and expenses don't balance. What can we do? We talked about cutting back, or again, I like to talk about swapping out versus cutting back. But can we increase what's coming in? Can one of us go out and get a part-time job and bring in the additional funds that way? Taxes. Maybe the husband and wife get an income tax return check every year, and it's for about $1,000, $1,200. Hey, honey, how about if we open up a holiday fund at our bank, and when we get that income tax check return, we just pop that into our holiday fund, and now we have the money to cover those expenses at the end of the year without having to throw how many things on that plastic credit card. So there's things that we can do to bring more money into the coffers, and of course, on the flip side, can we things that we can cut back on, housing costs. Okay, swapping services. I love about swapping services, transportation, those spending leaks we talked about, entertainment, food. Maybe the husband and wife, they like to do something with the kids every weekend. Every Saturday we go out to a movie, some dinner and a movie. Maybe something like fast food and a movie, or we go play miniature golf and get something to eat. And maybe they decide they're going to start doing that every other weekend, and the weekends in between we do something at little to no cost, or at little to no extra cost. Maybe every other week they decide, with them and the kids, they're going to make dinner together. They're going to make something fun. They all love to eat. They're going to make it together, and then they're going to sit down and maybe watch a movie, on one of those movie channels that they're paying for, with their own homemade popcorn. Or maybe after they have their dinner, they go out for a bike ride, or they do something that's not expensive. So they're cutting back that way. And we take stock. I like to talk about this all the time with food. Sometimes our cheaper foods are our healthier options. And here's an example that I use: frozen fruits and vegetables versus fresh. Not only are frozen fruits and vegetables generally cheaper than fresh fruits and vegetables, but apparently they're healthier as well. Why? I keep hearing this with frozen fruits and veg. When they get picked and flash frozen, that flash freezing locks in all the vitamins and nutrients. And those vitamins and nutrients stay locked in until we get it home, cook it, and eat it. With fresh fruits and vegetables, the longer those fresh fruits and vegetables sit around in a warehouse, or here, or warehouse there, at your home, the more vitamins and nutrients they lose. On top of that, not only being more expensive, but how much wastage do we have? If wastage is a word, if not, I just made it up. Um, Wastage that we have, and it's costing us even more. Now, of course, on the flip side, I find it very difficult to make a salad out of frozen vegetables. So we need some fresh, but something like that. Could we swap out again, like swapping out rather than cutting back? Healthier options that could generally even be cheaper options. So we're taking a look at all this, taking a stock of all this. Now, we need the basics: food, shelter, clothing, and transportation. But once go beyond the basics and increase our quality of life, and this is where people get into trouble. They have to have this, they have to have that, and this is where again I talk about keeping up with the Joneses. The Joneses have brand new, top of the line, all the bells and whistles, matching SUVs sitting in their driveway. We feel we have to follow suit. They move into a bigger and grander home. We feel we have to do the same thing. They start going on fancy vacations out to fancy. As I mentioned in the previous video, for all we know, the Joneses may be, and probably are, by the way, one paycheck away from total financial ruin, because they're going deeper and deeper into debt, because they have to have this, they have to have that, and we're following suit. We're going down the same path. We don't have to do that. We can go down the path I mentioned in people, in the beginning of this presentation. Millionaires out there you wouldn't even know are millionaires, because they don't live those millionaire lifestyles. They're not out to impress people with their Gucci bags and Louis Vuitton uh, purses and so on and so forth. Not poking fun at them, but it's, a lot of times that's why these things are created, to impress people with the label that's on your clothes, or the thing that you bought. People who, again, people out there you wouldn't even know are millionaires, that don't even do that. Uh, Good example of that is Mark Zuckerberg with his plain t-shirts, his what a gray t-shirts that he wears all the time. All right, so we talked about this in the previous presentation. We're looking at setting up a spending plan, setting up a budget. We have to take into consideration paying down our debt and building up a short-term slash emergency fund to cover those short-term or emergency needs that are going to come up. Not if they come up, when they come up. Um, so for those of us that are starting out, if we haven't started a spending plan, maybe these are the two things we can look at first. Do I have debt? How much debt do I have? Can I concentrate on paying that down over the course of the next year? I have, $3,000 in credit card debt and I pay it down, but then I add to it and I constantly have $3,000 or $4,000 credit card debt with that high interest rate that I'm paying. Is there something that I can do to eliminate that debt? Can I free up those additional funds over the course of the next year to pay that debt down, pay that debt off? Likewise, with the short-term fund, is there something that I can do over the course of the next year? Free up those additional funds, $50, $60, $100 a month that I can build up that short-term slash emergency fund. Experts say that we should have at least 3 to 6 months worth of expenses in that fund. And it could be very easy for us to figure out whether we have enough or we don't have enough. And we don't, what can I do over the course of the next year to make sure I have at least 3 to 6 months worth of expenses? And then maybe the following year I can add something to that. I can look at other things and build up my spending plans, build up my financial goals that way, and maybe continuing to look at cutting back. All right, as you progress and make your spending plan a habit, what about updating your SMART goals, reevaluating our priorities, and opening some type of an investment or retirement account? Again, as we do that, we're putting our ducks in a row. And three important things is paying down that debt, building up that short-term emergency fund, and putting money into some type of long-term retirement account. We've kind of talked about these. So I'm going to skip over this slide because we've talked about these individually in the different slides that we've covered. So we're just gonna jump over this. We've kind of talked about this too with the subscriptions, and there's other things out there that we could look at that maybe cut out, the spending leaks, update those subscriptions. Can I eliminate things that those channels that I'm not watching? Magazine subscriptions, the book of the month club, the wine of the month club, and all these other month clubs that are out there. Am I using these things? Can I eliminate them? Something we haven't talked about, we talked about a little bit with shopping with a list. You hear this all the time. You make a list of what you want from the grocery store and you stick to that list. A lot of people out there, I have a family member who did that. I would go out shopping with her. And as a kid, I would go out shopping with her. And first couple times she pulled in the grocery store, she said, "Oh, just stay here, Georgie. I'm just going to go in for a couple things. I'll be right out." And an hour or 2 hours later, she comes out with a whole shopping cart full of groceries. After that, I learned to go in with her and hang out in there until she was done. But creating a list and sticking to that list, that way we don't overspend. We get just what we need for the week. Review those sales ads. Plan what you'll buy based on your need. Remember, not all deals are a good buy. You see the name brand item on sale. Could I get the store brand at a better price even without the sale? Also, coupons. We got to watch with coupons. I hear this all the time. People that get coupons and they use, "Oh, look at this. I saved $1 on XYZ." But if they didn't have the coupon, would they have still bought XYZ? Or did they buy it just because they had a coupon? So did they actually spend money or save money? So we got to be careful with those coupons. All right, if you could save $30 a month by taking one or more of those saving tips and investing that money where it could really add up over a period of time. To me, this is very conservative. These are the numbers I was told to use, so I'm going to use them. But if we're investing for the long term, and as I mentioned in the STaRT program, and I'm investing. I have 30, 40 years to invest, and I'm investing in stocks and making a good return on that. And as that compound interest really starts to kick in, that snowball really starts to take off. You know, 20, 30, $40 a month will really add up over 30 or 40 years. Could you add this as a line item to your spending plan? $30 a month automatically. Maybe I don't have it automatically taken out of my paycheck at work and put into a 401k where there's a good chance I'm going to get matching funds. If they pay 100%, they match 100% up to the first 5% that I put in there, dollar for dollar. I've automatically doubled my money the minute it goes into the account. So could I do that and then add that as a line item on my spending plan, and then it's already taken care of? $30 a month, $40 a month. Or if not, say my company doesn't have a retirement plan, or it's not a good plan because we want to make sure it's a good plan. Could I create my own? Could I have those funds automatically taken once it hits the say my savings account? Could 30, 40, $50 be automatically taken out and transferred to some type of an investment account like an IRA or a Roth IRA? And again, we add that as a line item to our spending plan. Did you know some investment accounts can be opened with as little as $0 to $5? Again, those retirement accounts through our jobs are good examples of that. I don't need $1,000 to start with some type of a 401k. It starts right from at zero and adds up. And there's others that we can do that with as well. All right, this is an example of the snowball effect of investing, right? The investing snowball starts with a handful of snow, just like a regular snowball. And as we add to it and pack it, and it starts going down that hill, the further it goes down, the faster it gets. And the faster it goes, the much bigger it gets as it continues down that hill. In this case, we're going up with the compound interest that we're collecting. That graph, I showed a graph in the STaRT program that showed that it might not do much after for the first 10 or 15 years, but after the first 10 or 15 years, it really starts to take off. That's when we really start to see results. This is the power of compound interest. Sam's friend, and again, I showed this in the previous presentation. We're talking about Sam here. Sam's friend puts $100 a month into his savings jar with no interest for 40 years. After 40 years, he's going to have about $48,000. Sam decides to put his money someplace where it's going to earn compound interest, and in the same time, he's going to have more than about triple of what his friend has because of compound interest. Investigate. It's recommended. Some people recommend working with a financial professional. And if you do, certainly check them out. As I mentioned in the previous presentation, if we're going to work with a financial professional, make sure that person is licensed and legit. One way that we can do that is through brokercheck.finra.org, uh, where we go to we site. We can go. First of all, we can find professionals that are in our area. And if we don't find a professional, and we know if they're on this site, they are registered, they are basically licensed and legit. Gives you information about their previous work history, how long they've been doing this. Have they only been doing this for a couple months? Are they here today, gone tomorrow, or they've been doing this for a while? Do they have any complaints against them? A lot of good information that can be found out by going to this site, brokercheck.finra.org, to look for a financial professional. All right, spending plan isn't worth much if you don't go back and review it. Priorities and goals change. Make sure you monitor and adjust as needed. These things are going to ebb and flow. Things are going to come and go, especially the longer term goal, the shorter or longer term, mid-range goals. So things get added, things get dropped, things change. I get a raise at work. Or my spouse gets a raise at work. We're now bringing in an extra $100 or $200 a month. We have that, so things are changing, and we keep adjusting as we make that change. My apologies. Also, we could get to a point I'm at this point now, of course, again, very easy for me with my budgeting, with my spending plan. But we can get to a point where we might not have to do this every month. We start out doing this every month. At a point, we may be able to go every other month and even every quarter. I'm doing it quarterly now to make sure that I'm staying on track with my spending and the my cash flow, making sure I have more coming in than what's going out, and having enough to cover those financial goals. So we maybe get to that point as well. You don't have to do it every month, maybe every other month or even once a quarter. So with that, here is my contact information. If anybody would like to reach out to me, uh, questions, issues, um, and also our toll-free number for our agency is 1-800-PA-BANKS, or 800-722-2657, or 800-600-0007. That's one more zero than James Bond. We have an in-house staff that will take phone calls Monday through Friday from 8 to 5. You call during those days and times, you should get a live voice answering the phone. If you don't get a live voice answering the phone, you leave a message and somebody should get back to you within 24 business hours. And with that, we will end the presentation, and I'll thank everyone for joining.